Hello everyone, welcome to our YouTube channel, Buddha Affirmation. Here every story has a purpose and every lesson is meant to help you grow in a life. So let's dive into a new story that will teach you a deep lesson about helping others. So let's start the story. Once upon a time, Gautam Buddha and a few of his disciples were traveling through a small village. As they passed through the village, they saw a beggar lying on the side of the road in a miserable state. The beggar looked incredibly weak. His clothes were tattered, and it was clear from his appearance that he had not eaten or bathed in several days. His body was frail and dirty, and anyone could see he was struggling to survive. One of the Buddha's main disciples, Vishnu, who was always by Buddha's side, noticed the beggar. Feeling a wave of sympathy for the man, Vishnu hurried over to Buddha and said, "Lord, there is a beggar lying by the roadside. He looks very weak and helpless. His condition is pitiful. I think we should offer him a chance to hear your teachings so he can also learn the path of truth and righteousness." Buddha, hearing Vishnu's concern, smiled gently at him. "Let's go to him," Buddha said, his voice full of compassion. Buddha, along with his disciples, walked over to the beggar. When they reached him, they realized the beggar's condition was even worse than they had initially thought. His body looked like skin straight over bones, and there was no light in his eyes. He was so weak that he could not even sit up properly on his own. His whole body trembled from exhaustion and hunger. Vishnu believed that Buddha would now give the beggar a teaching, sharing wisdom about life, truth, and righteousness, so the beggar could find some peace and relief from his suffering. However, Buddha had something else in his mind. Instead of starting teaching, Buddha turned to his disciples and said, "Before anything else, we need to get this man some food." The disciples were a little surprised. They had expected Buddha to offer spiritual guidance or wisdom right away. But instead, Buddha's first concern was the beggar's immediate physical need, food. Without hesitation, the disciples obeyed Buddha's instruction and went to find food for the beggar. After a short time, they returned with some simple but nourishing food and placed it in front of the beggar. The beggar, who had clearly not eaten for days, immediately began to devour the food. He was eating as if his life depended on it, which of course it did. Slowly, the pain of hunger faded from his face and his body began to relax. The tension in his limbs softened, and his eyes, which had been dull and lifeless before, now held a faint glimmer of life. He no longer looked like someone on the verge of collapse. Once the beggar finished eating, he looked at Buddha for a moment as if he acknowledging him without words, and then, without saying anything, he lay down and fell into deep, peaceful sleep right there on the side of the road. Seeing this, Vishnu and other disciples were confused and somewhat disappointed. Vishnu approached Buddha and asked, "Lord, we thought you would give him teachings about truth and the path of righteousness so that he could escape the suffering of his life. But instead, he ate and then just fell asleep. Why did not you give him your wisdom?" Buddha looked at Vishnu, his eyes filled with understanding and kindness, and replied in a soft and caring tone, "Vishnu, for this beggar, the most important thing right now was food. He was so hungry and weak that his body had no strength left. When someone is starving, they cannot focus on anything other than their hunger. They won't be able to understand any teachings or guidance because their mind and body are consumed with the need for food. Only after his basic needs are met can he be open to hearing and understanding the path of truth and righteousness. When a person's stomach is empty, their mind cannot function properly. All of their energy is focused on satisfying that hunger. They cannot think about anything else, not even spiritual teachings. That is why we must first address a person's basic needs like food and shelter. Only then we can help them understand deeper truth about life. Buddha's words carried a profound message. He was teaching his disciples a lesson that went beyond just helping the beggar. It was a universal truth about life. He wanted them to understand that you can't help someone spiritually or mentally if their physical needs are not met first. Buddha finished by saying that for a starving person, the greatest act of compassion is to feed them. No spiritual teachings will make sense to someone who is starving. Only after their hunger is satisfied, they will have the peace and clarity of mind to receive deeper wisdom. That is why it is important to always be mindful of a person's immediate needs and to meet those first before offering any teaching or advice. Hearing this, Vishnu and the other disciples understood the depth of Buddha's wisdom. They realized that spiritual teachings are important, but addressing a person's basic human needs come first. Only when those needs are met can a person truly be open to higher learning and understanding. This story teaches that the first step in showing compassion is to understand and address people's basic needs, whether it is food, shelter, or safety. Once a person's primary needs are met, they are in a better position to focus on their mental and spiritual growth. This story also reminds us that we need to be gentle and understanding when helping others, meeting them where they are, and recognizing that everyone's situation is different. For someone who is starving, the most important thing is food, not philosophy or teachings. Similarly, when we try to help others, we should first focus on what they need the most at that moment, rather than rushing to give advice or guidance that may not be relevant to their immediate situation. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoy this video, hit like button, and for more such stories, subscribe to our channel. Thank you and stay positive.